Hello, it is 24 degrees centigrade here in Abuja. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Sunrise this morning. I'm Chamberlain Oso.
A warm good morning to you this morning. I'm Kayla Megwa.
And I'm Ayo Makinde. Good morning and welcome to the program.
Okay, so have a look. Just something to calm your nerves. In case you need it. In case you need to calm. But yeah, we'll have this kind of scenery in this country. So I don't know, I hope at some point, even though we like to remind ourselves, hope is not a strategy. But who knows, you never can tell. We might as well make up our mind someday and begin to take advantage of sceneries and locations like this one, which you see right there in Taraba State, one of the many locations, not just in that state, but in different parts of the country as well.
I mean, that's EB. EB. Yes, EB.
Is that the right way to go?
Yes,
okay.
EB. EB local government area.
I had to be calm so I don't spoil it. I was there, is it Igby?
No,
Igby.
no, Igby.
Whichever one. Okay.
EB.
As long as the spelling is correct.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, good morning, Taraba. You are on air today. Lovely scenery from your state. Mostly farmers and fishermen in Taraba, especially in EB.
This country is beautiful, I tell you.
You know, in the past, EB was known for cotton. They used to farm a lot of cotton in EB. And it's one of the 16 local government areas in Taraba State, the administrative district of the place, and located at the south bank of the Benue River. And this morning, they're looking at a hot morning, 32 degrees this morning.
But this is how to use water. Not the flooded areas. Don't allow it to get so flooded. And if you create something like this, I think it would be lovely.
There's so much more that has to be done, especially with these scenes. And that's why I really love the fact that we bring these things every morning. Just so people can see that we have potential. And in many, yes, most of the time they're being used, but they're not maximized. They need to be maximized.
Remember what the AFDB president always says. You don't eat potential.
You don't eat potential. Absolutely. Absolutely. So yeah, EB this morning. And we hope you all have a wonderful day in Taraba State. It's a place that we should actually travel to soon.
You're not going to Lagos anymore?
I'll go to Taraba first.
Oh.
I'll go to Taraba first.
Don't worry.
So we can see what's going on there.
Don't worry, Kayla. Just stay in your north. We are okay with our south here. But really, I mean, what you guys always know that I talk about is that's a beautiful, beautiful site there. You know, it's part of the river, you know, Benue, as we say. It's a beautiful, beautiful place. Looking at it again, as you know, Chamberlain said, it's just something to calm you down. And Chamberlain, again, I talked about the fact, I mean, just give it all the necessary color grading and put a few actors and actresses here and there, and you have a country movie. What are we talking about here? We just have this potential. And as Kayla just reminded us, there's this African place, Yoruba proverb that no one eats almost in a pot of soup. Go decode that the best way you can. So, Chamberlain, what's happening today?
Hope the almost doesn't look like meat. Okay, well, in the courts, the CJN will be swearing in some judges this morning at the court. So it's something that all eyes will be on this morning here today. So in spite of all that is going on, the CJN will be busy today.
Oh yeah, so the Supreme Court will be a very busy place. The Supreme Court will be filled to capacity today, and I think we're bringing this live. We're bringing this live.
We'll check it out and see if we can.
We're trying to bring it live. So the CJN will be swearing in 22 justices of the Federal High Court and Court of Appeal. Yeah. So that's the major thing happening in Abuja. One of the major things happening in Abuja today. Ayo, what's going on with business?
Well, business morning on Sunrise Daily today, we'll be talking about independent power sources closing the electricity supply gap. Whether or not that can happen, how that can happen, I think, you know, it's only a matter of time. Don't forget, a few days ago, I think it was last week or the week before, we brought to the viewer that occurrence in Katsina State, that wind farm that is still, I don't know what to call it right now. Is it latent? Definitely just latent. It's just lying there, something that is possible. But then, IPP is another thing that we've been talking about since this republic began. Did they have the capacity to close the electricity supply gap in the country? Business Morning on Sunrise Daily at 10 o'clock will give you more details on that. So, Chamberlain, please take us through the papers this morning.
Here are some of the papers, and we'll start with Nigerian Tribune. Tinubu kicks off reform, development of livestock sector, creates ministry to name minister soon. Jega replaces Ganduje as Reform Implementation Committee chairman. And beneath that list story, Oronsanya report, follow due process, Senator tells FG. Oppose scrapping of videos censors board. Want laws establishing merged MDAs reviewed. As a lead story on Tribune here today, Blueprint, Livestock Ministry will develop economy, give our people hope, ascribed to Tinubu. And from then on to the Guardian newspaper, new ministry. Tinubu woos headers with Livestock Ministry, increases fiscal strain. That's how the Guardian reports today. Business Day, food import success lies on avoiding past hurdles, the report today as well. Well, let's bring you Daily Independence today. Take emergency measures to end hunger, Senate tells FG. Vanguard newspaper's perspective is on the 400 billion naira oil production shortfall, says threatens 2024 budgets. And then Daily Trust, to report on what transpired yesterday, suspends Samoa agreements implementation. Reps tell FG. Well, that much was decided on the floor yesterday. The Daily Times, ICPC bemoans soaring cases of sexual harassment in primary, secondary schools, calls for decisive action against offenders. So there are some of the dailies we've got for you this morning, guys. Here are some of the papers, and we'll
in a situation that is very confusing. I must mention here that I've discussed a number of occasions with the governors. The need to see this opportunity, seize it, let's run with it. From here, are we at this junction? Are we appeal to remove every taint of partisan politics from it? We've identified the model for livestock management. It is done in other countries, in other climes, successfully promoted. It created great economy and empowerment for ordinary people. Traditional livestock system must be reformed to add significant and sustainable value to Nigerian socio-economic growth and development. This presents a unique opportunity also to delineate and establish a separate ministry called the Ministry of Livestock Development. We develop the economy. Give people opportunity to excel.
And so the story goes, the creation of the Ministry of Livestock Development. That is our focus this morning. So we've got three gentlemen joining us this morning to weigh in on this subject matter. Here in the studios, Professor Zachary Angagundu, who is the Vice Chancellor, University of Nkara, Benue State. I hope I got that spelled.
Yes, you got it.
I did?
Right. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you for coming on this morning. Joining us virtually, Dr. Dele Ayemibo, who is a lead consultant, 3T Impex Consulting. He also does a lot in the agri sector. He will be weighing in virtually. And in our Kano studios, Usman Babangel Zerma is the National Secretary, Mieti Allah Cattle Breeders Association of Nigeria, MACBAN. He will be joining us from our studios in Kano. Gentlemen, good morning to you all and welcome to the program. Can we see Mr. Ngilzama? I know that they advocated for some of this for a while in terms of wanting this ministry. Now, you have what you have been advocating for all this while. So I know you might have heard some of the reactions about some of this. So could you tell us, when you were thinking about this, I mean, when you spoke about this, that there has to be this ministry, what was the mindset? What was the intendment of your agitation?
Mr. Chamberlain, first of all, thank you for having me. You can see I'm excited today, very happy for the creation of this ministry. And I express my gratitude to God for making it possible, and my gratitude to President Ahmed Bola Tinubu and his government for establishing this ministry at the right time when we need it more than any other time. We thank him very much for that, and we appreciate him on behalf of His Eminence the Sultan of Sokoto, who is the Chairman Board of Trustee MACBAN, and the other Board of Trustee members, the ESCO, and every other member across the country. We thank Mr. President for giving us a ministry for livestock development in the country. This is what we have been agitating for, as you have rightly said. This is what we are looking forward for, and today we have it. We are so excited and very happy, where our hopes have been renewed under the renewed hope agenda of Mr. President. So we thank him very much. We appreciate him for giving us this very wonderful achievement, and a historic one for that matter. You see, Mr. Chamberlain, creating a ministry at this time is what we have been yearning for, because we felt over the decades the potentials involved in the livestock subsector has not been tapped by the country. While we compare it with our neighbors who had since served this Ministry of Livestock Development, and today they are reaping from the benefits of livestock. Some of these countries' economy solely depend on livestock because it has not been neglected. It has been given the right attention it deserves. While we are talking of only 10% contribution to the country's gross domestic product in Nigeria, other countries that are reaping seriously are talking of about 30 to 50% of GDP contribution of those countries, creating more employment, creating more revenue, turning around the economies of this country. Okay. So today that we have this, we feel it will go a long way in tapping the potentials, the enormous potentials involved in the livestock value chain.
So all the other gentlemen who are also here, let's also get their thoughts, but you all will have opportunity to get clarifications from yourselves, if you will. But let me come to you, Dr. Ayemibo. You also deal in that subsector as well. How did you see the creation of this ministry?
I think it's a welcome development. The challenge we've had with herders and farmer issue in the past is the fact that we have cattle in Nigeria and herding cattle in Nigeria is supposed to be a blessing because of the potential, which I hope to mention because of this program. But that we're having this now, I think is a very, very much welcome development. And it's not just Nigeria that have it. India have similar, China have similar, Argentina have similar, and even some countries in Africa have a similar ministry. So I think it's a welcome development. The only challenge The only concern I have, which I would like to express, is the ministry, in as much as the cattle rearers are major proponent of this kind of ministry, it should not just be focused only on the cattle. There's so many other areas in livestock that should be focused on, from poultry to piggery and a number of other areas with huge potential, so that we'll be able to tap into the potential, particularly as to generating forex. That, I think, is what we should do. But it's a welcome development, in my opinion. Thank you.
All right, Professor Ogundu, what do you think?
Well, I think it's not a welcome development. There are several reasons for thinking this way. First, there are close to 6-7 ministries in this country that are not helping anybody. I'll give just an example of the Ministry of Steel Development. That ministry has been in place and was responsible for midwifing Ajaokuta from 1980. By 1983, Ajaokuta was about 84% completion. That is when Shagari was kicked out. Up to the time we are speaking, 40 years and above, Ajaokuta has not taken off. It's not completed. And there's no reason to think that it will ever be completed. So the issue is not proliferation of ministries. That is not the issue. We don't need another ministry of livestock development. We don't. And of course, the context within which this ministry has emerged is a very frightening context. Just when we're about to do the election that ushered in President Tinubu, fortunately, Othman is on this panel. We are speaking together. He spoke first on the program. The Miati Allah had given a 7-point agenda.
Which means Magban or
Magban. No, yes, Magban, led by Othman and his own people. They had given a 7-point agenda to every presidential candidate, at least the 3 top runners. They gave it to them. And he had said that it is only the person who would agree to do what they want that they would support. He boasted then that headers had registered up to 15-16 million voters, and they would give these votes to the person who would do what they wanted. I want Nigerians to know that they had a deal with this current government, because even before Dr. Ganduje left Kano, he set up this kangaroo committee for reforms. Magban and Miete were not satisfied with the National Livestock Transformation Plan of the Buhari government. They were not satisfied. They criticized it. So Ganduje, before he left, he started this committee. And soon after that, they organized a national conference and then gave a report to the president. It is this report that the president today or yesterday said he was going to create this Ministry of Livestock Development. I want people to realize that Ganduje's committee, I think there were just about 26 people in that committee, 26. Only about 6 of them were not from the Hausa Fulani setup. Virtually every single one of them was a Fulani person. And now they want to tell us that if you create this ministry, it will stop the farmer header crisis. How will it stop it?
Well, Prof, just so we can get perspectives on this.
Yes.
Some of the things that have fueled this farmer header crisis are their practices, this roaming of cattle.
Yes.
And what the president said, at least from what we heard him say, is that this ministry will ensure that modern practices are being inculcated into these herders.
It seems you
and if you can correct me if I'm wrong.
Okay.
Now, if these modern practices are inculcated into how they do their business, don't you think that would reduce the issues of cows coming into people's farms and things like that?
I'm trying to give you a context to what happened before the president said what he said yesterday. Some people sat because Ganduje invited them, about 26 of them. And I'm trying to tell you that only 6 of them were not Fulani people, only.
Is that what the issue is? You wanted more participation?
Of course. If you are sitting down to try to answer, to resolve this question, people who are farmers, crop farmers, have to sit on the table.
You mentioned
yesterday when the president was talking, more than half of what he was saying was about livestock. Where are the crop farmers? And of course, when Ganduje was setting up this committee, and when the committee submitted the report, they wanted this country to also take care of herders who are coming from outside Nigeria to come into Nigeria and be accommodated. If our farmers who are crop farmers cannot be accommodated in their own, on their own ancestral lands, what is the use of bringing people from outside this country to accommodate them in the name of herders? And of course, if the government is thinking about this, what of the people who are in the IDP camps for more than 10 years? No mention was made of them. What type of country do we want to have? That you will ignore other people? You will set up a committee, they are not there, then you bring up a ministry.
Let's bring in Mr. Ngazama. So since you made reference to him. So, Mr. Ngazama, could you go ahead and respond to what he said?
Well, you see, to me, the professor is being parochial in his thinking. He has narrowed his thinking. Instead of him to widen up, look at the livestock issues broadly, he is looking at it from the sentimental point of view of Fulanis being the pastoralists. It's not our choice to be pastoralists. It's a matter of destiny. It's a coincidence that the cattle ownership in the country belongs to 95% of the cattle ownership in the country belongs to the Fulanis. It's not a matter of choice, it's just a coincidence. If it were a matter of choice, we would not choose to be pastoralists. Maybe we will choose to be some other professionals rather than being pastoralists. So that is a coincidence. So instead of him to look at it broadly from the point of view of livestock as an entity, he's now looking at it from the point of view of livestock belonging to Fulanis, which is a coincidence. Anyway, not a matter of choice. So you see, if he will...
Mr. Ngazama, you know, just so we can address some of the fears that he mentioned, he said that when this committee was set up, when the conversation about stopping farmer-herder conflict was being had, that croppers were not involved. It seemed as though that more people, the bigger constitution of that committee, of that meeting, were herders. So they feel left out of the situation. Do you agree or disagree with him on that?
I don't agree. The committee comprises of about 30 members. I'm also a member of the committee. All professionals from all aspects of livestock were drawn into the committee. Some are Igbos, some are Yorubas. There is no sentiment that is not covered by that committee. So the committee is not about choosing Fulanis. It's about choosing professionals who will add value, who would add quality to the work of the committee. And that is what Ganduje had done. He has gone around, made a lot of consultation to choose those that matter in the livestock development of the country, not thinking about bringing in Fulanis. Now, an implementation committee has been inaugurated yesterday. I was not a member of the implementation committee, being leader of the umbrella body of the pastoralists. And so it goes. So you see, the professor, as an educated person, should be looking at the livestock in a broader perspective, looking at it on how, if tapped, if managed very well, can turn around the economy of the country. I am telling you, if the government can organize, develop the livestock subsector of the economy, it is enough to turn around the economy of the country in a way that the economy can even depend on livestock with the population of livestock that we have in the country. We didn't like the National Livestock Transformation Plan under Buhari's administration, because throughout the 8 years of Buhari's administration, while we are speaking of over 500 billion spent on agronomy for agriculture, how much was spent on livestock? Almost nothing. Go and have a look at the state budgets of livestock across the nation. You realize that if they budget something at all, it will not be more than vaccination of the cows. Is this the only thing that we need in the livestock? We need to develop the production aspect of livestock, the processing aspect, the management of the markets, the transportation aspect, so much things that are involved in livestock, in addition to the security implications that is today affecting the livestock subsector of the economy. That is why we have been agitating.
Ngazama, we're going to come back to you in a bit, but I want to be able to get Professor to talk about a few other things. He has mentioned what you said earlier. But just so we can get what you think what do you think the ultimate plan is? Because you sound as though there has been a lot of things they've been doing. They created the Scots, they did this, they did that. What do you think the ultimate plan is? Because for many people, we've seen livestock development in other parts of the world, where in Pakistan, they have that Turuga, where everything cow is sold, from hide to milk to cheese. And then the concept of coordinating this properly so that it can actually help generate income like we see in other parts of the world. But you're saying in many ways that there's something else going on here. What do you think the ultimate plan is?
Well, the ultimate plan is to satisfy what the Fulanis want in this country.
Which is?
Which is, they just want to be roaming about with their cows, and then they want to grab lands in other places. Every other person knows that pastoralism, the way it's practiced by the Fulanis, is not sustainable. Every single person knows this. Every person knows this. But now you can hear what Baba is saying, what Baba Usman is saying, that because they are spending so much on other aspects of agriculture, they should also spend so much on cattle. But we ask, if you are not breeding, and in truth, the Fulanis are not breeding, they are just buying cows from Potiskum, which is the biggest cattle market in West Africa, and they are just roaming with these cows, eating free fodder, free food, free grass, drinking free water. What besides veterinary expenses, what else do they want? What we want is for them to breed these cattle.
Listen to what the
for
president...
them to breed these cattle, they have to stay in one place.
So here's what the president said.
They don't need a ministry to do that.
He said that traditional methods of livestock farming will need to be reviewed. He said he was going to do this. It will need to be reviewed and repositioned with the support of stakeholders, which include state governments, in order to open up new opportunities for growth and prosperity. So those archaic methods, with the ministry, you don't think they can better...
No, you don't need a ministry to do that. You don't need a ministry to do that. You need just a policy framework to be able to do that. I have told you before that if we think that we have issues in this country, and then we can throw ministries at these problems, it's not going to work.
All right.
We have thrown the education ministry, we have thrown the power ministry. There's no light in this country.
Okay. Prof,
let's bring in an issue of ministry.
Dr. Ayemibo, you've had both perspectives from both guests. What do you think?
It's interesting, the conversation. I'm looking at it purely from economic perspective. I made a statement which I think is the fear that, or the concern that the Prof has, the fact that this is being driven by the cattle and herders in the country. But like your colleague mentioned there, the president already said that this ministry is supposed to ensure that the modern practice in the rearing of cattle or livestock management should be deployed. I think we should give the president the benefit of the doubt and allow this ministry to try. We depend a lot on oil in this country. Demand for oil as at last year was about $1.5 trillion. Livestock alone in the world, the demand is about 500 billion. Nigeria can do a lot in that space. If there is a lot of budget being made in the agri ministry, and good chunk of it is going into crop farming, and little is going into livestock, and now we're having a ministry that is focusing solely on livestock, I think it should be our responsibility as citizens to ensure that this ministry does not just focus on farming.
From your perspective,
and ensure that other parts.
When you say, Dr. Imibo, when you say that you heard what the president said and then we should allow it to thrive, what, from your perspective, do you think is the modern practice that the president was talking about?
In my opinion, what he's saying is the fact that these cattle, not just cattle, but let's talk with cattle now, since that's a bone of contention, will not have to be moving up and down again, because in fact, if they are more productive, the cattle are more productive when they are not expending their energy in moving up and down. So if we put them in one location, it becomes a lot easier for them to be able to generate the kind of result they are looking for. So I think it's extremely important that we ensure that that's I said, it's the responsibility of the citizen to ensure that the modern practice is what is being enforced this time around, that the cattle will not have to be moving up and down again.
Let's find out from Mr. Ngazama if that is their thinking when they were asking for all of this. So, Mr. Ngazama, could you tell us then, is this creation of the ministry going to stop herders from moving from one place to the other?
Chambly, modernization of the production aspect of livestock is the more reason why we have been agitated for a ministry in order to modernize the entire livestock production system in the country in a way that it will benefit both the producers and government at the same time. We are not talking about the development of either Fulanis or pastoralists. We are looking at the larger picture. Today, we are talking of Lagos consuming 6,000 cows on daily basis that are coming from the north. This is just Lagos. Cows are taken to everywhere in the southern part of the country. Just think of the huge investment involved in it. 6,000 cows on daily basis coming from the north. And the north sells, the Fulani sells live cows, while the entire value chain benefit is benefited in the southern part of the country where the cow is being processed. We don't benefit nothing because the entire value chain is there. That is one. And I am surprised the professor's sense of reasoning is being blinded by sentiment. I'm surprised because he's talking of land grabbing. Even in the northern part of the country where the pastoralists belong, they don't have land. They don't care about land. They stay in the forest. When development reaches them, they move further into the forest. They don't care about land. If you talk of land, I always laugh. Why are they looking for land?
Mr. Ngazama, I hear you. I understand the point you're making.
Yeah.
But I did ask you, because that's the impression people have, is the creation of this ministry going to stop herders from moving around, encroaching on farms and causing
If the right
fights?
people are put to manage the activities, to manage the activities of that ministry, if good representative professors are put there, I am sure it will going to work to stop all this movement. We are never against settlement. We are for settlement. But what model of settlement? We just have to evolve a model of settlement to stop this rumor about looking for prepared because it is not going to be sustained. The population is growing and it will continue to grow against a land that doesn't increase. So this calls for an effective planning on the land. We are never opposed settlement.
Assuming that then happens, what is the thinking of your group? Because, I mean, you are part of those who are calling for this.
Yeah.
Is the ministry going to compel state governors to give them land? Because the Land Use Act stipulates that the land is under the control of the state
government. Do they need the state government to give them land? We have areas that are dedicated as grazing reserves. We have about 415 of them all located in the northern part of the country, covering about 6 million hectares of land. there are some encroachment in them. But if you minus out the encroachment out of the total number we have, you will still have about 5 million hectares of land that are dedicated for grazing, have laws on them for grazing. The lands are there. Do we need anybody's land? The reason why we are calling for the protection and preservation of those lands is if we are going to settle the pastoralists, they need a land to be settled. Since there are dedicated areas that are designated for settlement, for grazing, those areas can be used to settle the pastoralists. But there has to be a model of settlement, because this roaming the wild looking for pasture is not going to be sustained, even in the northern part of the country, because of the increase of the population, because of challenges of climate change and what have you. So there has to be an effective planning for the two professions, farming and herding, to coexist peacefully.
Well, you know, let me ask let me begin with you, Mr. Yemibo. You know, the conversation around all of these, you know, farmer herder thing and all is perhaps not the issue. The issue here, and I'd like to focus on Mr. Ayemibo, if you can hear me. The issue is the value chain. Can you hear me, Mr. Ayemibo?
Yes.
Great. So, for you, what are the issues here? This matter of livestock development isn't new. Up until, I think was it 2021, when the federal government under the Buhari administration came up with it was actually between 2019, and it was supposed to run between 2019 and 2028, the National Livestock Transformation Plan. It sounded like a good idea. It was an initiative of the National Economic Council under the vice president of the day. And up until now, from what you know, was there any significant progress made on that plan?
No, because it was resisted because of a number of issues having to do with the fact that it's not likely going to solve the problem, which was the major concern that the herders have, who are the proponents of this. Now, you know, sometimes when we look at the issue in our country, I know that this is a very touchy issue, but we should also think through on how we can provide solution to it. More importantly is how it benefits not just the Fulani herdsmen, not just the people that are within the space, even the country in general. So with this arrangement now we have a minister that can be engaged on what needs to be done to be able to solve this problem. Now we can have a proper budget for that ministry that will ensure that whatever practice that needs to be put in place to ensure that we minimize or to a large extent put an end to the farmer herder class that can happen.
Mr. Ayemibo, just a second. I'm trying to de-emphasize, just a second if you can hear me. I'm trying to de-emphasize the sentiment and look at the business of it, just as you said the other time. Livestock is a business. And it is human beings, excuse me, who have invested their money in this business. As at the last count, and I think it was even as late as last year, May or thereabout, it's in the news that the livestock value chain in Nigeria is worth 30 trillion naira. Now, it is human beings, businessmen, private sector people who are invested in it. In fact, we also gathered that the hides and skin value chain alone is tremendous on its own for bags, belt, and so many other things like that. So at the end of the day, it's not government that is going to spend its money to buy livestock. It's human beings. It's human beings that go around all over the place. So that's why I'm asking the question, what is it that's going to make a difference now? Because it's a plan. Even this ministry itself is a plan. All that is expected from the livestock transformation plan was for government to provide an enabling environment. This ministry also, in my opinion, is supposed to provide an enabling environment. So if the livestock transformation plan didn't work because of the issues, what's the assurance that a Ministry of Livestock Development is going to make any significant difference?
because now they will be focused more on policy to ensure that the sector thrives. For example, egg now is about 150 to 200 because of the high cost of importation of the feed used in that industry. Now these people can have opportunity to engage directly with the government so that solution can be provided to their peculiar challenge of bringing in the raw materials and what are they need to be able to feed the poultry. Leather in Nigeria, for example, are exported, and the exported leather used to produce goods that have been imported back into Nigeria. This ministry can then begin to put into place policy to ensure that the leather are produced at a competitive rate that can be used in Nigeria to be able to generate enough income into this country. I'm talking about now in terms of FX generation. So what I see is policies that this ministry can come up with, which the citizen and the people in this place have to engage the ministry to ensure their pain point, the issue addressed, not just the farmer either, from the poultry to the piggery to the people in the leather and the valuation altogether. So I feel because now we have a ministry who is not thinking about agri, because agri and farming is huge on its own. Now you have only livestock. So we can then begin to take each of them. You have directories for each of these areas, including the value chain, and begin to put in place policy, but in consultation with the practitioner in the private sector. What are your pain points? So what do we need to do? What does the government to do to support and be able to get all these things done?
Okay. Well, Prof, let me ask you as well, because it's every time we talk about livestock in Nigeria over the years, the focus has always been cattle. And, you know, pretty much that department and no more. But then, as has all just been explained here now by Mr. Ayemibo, the value chain is huge. Includes poultry, includes goats and rams that other parts of the country are also big on. So do you think it is, I mean, a number of people will also question why we need to create a Ministry of Livestock outside of the Ministry of Agriculture, as we did create the Ministry of Water Resources outside of the Ministry of Agriculture. So is it a problem of policy? Is it a problem of personnel? Is it a problem of efficiency that those initiatives didn't work before, as you said? Because indeed, if you look at it, the value chain is huge and greatly advantageous to the people.
Well, I agree with you. Let me just say this point. No person who is conscious enough would deny the fact that there's a huge value chain in livestock production. The value chain is huge, and we certainly need to improve on it. But the point I have been trying to make is we don't need another ministry. It looks to me as if people just want another ministry. Of course, if you create another ministry, you will have a minister, you will have directors, you will have a permanent secretary, you will have all sorts of bureaucracy which would be managed with a lot of money. But let's not get this impression that once you have a ministry and you throw money to it the way money is thrown to other ministries, things are going to work. We threw money into something like Anchor borrower system just to improve on our rice production. It was a terrible mess. People who were not farmers went there and grabbed this money, and they cannot pay back, and no person can hold them to account. What we need is just policy. We don't need another ministry. That's the point I'm making. And of course, Baba had made something, a point. He says I'm sentimental. But why would I not be sentimental when you are going back to grazing reserves? Some of these grazing reserves you are counting, and you think they are huge. They were not even gazetted. So if you went to Benue State, for example, and then you are talking about grazing reserves that are not gazetted, and you think the state should give you right to enter into those grazing reserves, there must be something wrong with your head. Because we have gone past that. That is the reason why we needed more people on that Uganduje committee who would also say that, where are you going to get this land? If you are thinking about a countrywide space for animal production. And then for those who talk about chicken, who talk about goats, let me just make this last point. Those who talk about chicken, who talk about goats, you heard Baba say that 95% of livestock in this country is controlled by the Fulanis. So if they create this ministry, and you are that hapless chicken farmer or goat farmer somewhere, you will not have a voice in that ministry.
Maybe there was a bit of a misunderstanding, Prof. Because if I get Baba right, what he said was that 95% of those in the cattle subsector of the livestock value chain. But I mean, the point that you are making is made there. Is it possible for us, Prof, to depoliticize this issue and look at the developmental side? I understand the sentiments. No. Just a second, Prof. It should be possible. Here is why. Okay. Governor El-Rufai, while in office, had some consultations with some people from the Netherlands to start a dairy business for the government, facilitated it for, in the state, just so that we can milk the value chain, so to speak, in a manner of speaking. Now, if it was possible for governors all over the nation to scale up such things all across their states, and I mean, if governments at the various state levels, because the president also made that reference, if the governors would take the initiative themselves to control the narratives, wouldn't it be possible for us to de-emphasize these sentiments and look at the value chain in the interest of the country and in the interest of the future?
My brother, these are not sentiments. These are not sentiments. If you are dealing with an economy that pushes away other people from their ancestral lands, if you are dealing with an economy and a process that kills people, if you are dealing with an economy and a process that has put people in IDP camps for more than 10 years, and government is not looking their way, how would you ever expect that people will not appreciate the politics and the complications of the politics around this type of thing? It's not about sentiments. You kill somebody, you put people in the camps. There are people in this country internally displaced more than 10 years. No person is looking at them. And then you are talking about
just a second.
They should depoliticize this.
Yeah, Prof. It's a valid point that you've made. So let me talk to Mr. Usman Baba. You have heard, the Prof, and I know that, you have your own opinion about his perspectives to this issue. But then I don't know if it is possible to look away from the facts that he has stated. You may want to speak to it. Now, there are... What do you see happening? How do you think these sentiments can be de-emphasized so that we can all focus on the values here? Because indeed, just as you said, it is easy for anyone to look at just the sentimental side and not look at the business side, given the things and the news reports that have made the rounds over the years. So, Mr. Usman Baba, how do you see us de-emphasizing that, speaking to the sentiments and getting everyone to look in the direction of the values that we're talking about here, without necessarily playing down on the importance of those sentiments as well?
To me, can you take the question back? Can you repeat the question, please?
I can, but can you hear me well?
I can hear you now.
Good. I'm saying you heard the Prof and you heard his sentiments, all of the things that he has said. How do you think we can let people know that the past can go to the past and we can build a different, better future with this initiative of the federal government, not necessarily playing down the sentiments, but saying that we can put the past where it is?
You say part of the sense that the military will have to start with is sensitization of the public. finding that missing communication link between farmers and herders, trying to bring them together. That will be the first assignment of this ministry before other things that will follow. And you see, the professor is making me laugh because the sentiment is coming out clearly. He is talking of Benue. We have IDPs in Benue that farmers are there. Because of the anti-open ranching establishment and this open grazing prohibition law that was established by Autumn. That law, even from the onset, it was made to fail because it's not going to do anybody any good. And today that we are speaking about the law, there is no one single established ranch in Benue. Because not only pastoralists are dealing with cows in Benue, are dealing with livestock in Benue. Even the Tips and so many other tribes are dealing with cows. Even Autumn has cows in Benue. But there is no one single established ranch as I speak to you today in Benue. So nobody is happy about that. Nobody is happy that the farmers are kept in IDPs. And nobody is happy that the pastoralists have lost a huge amount of cows in Benue. This is what the law brought to Benue. But sentiment aside, let us look at the larger picture of livestock development in the country and what can livestock do for the economy of the country. As I told you, Chamberlain, we are never against settlement, but we have to evolve a model of settlement that can suit the peculiarity of those pastoralists. We have to talk of the grazing reserves, and if I will correct the professor, Benue has no grazing reserve. We have never mentioned Benue having a grazing reserve. All the grazing reserves we are talking about are those that are gazetted, that have laws on them. We don't speak on grazing reserve that doesn't have laws on them. When we speak about grazing reserves...
Now, we're talking about reforms in what everyone has described as a business, right? Livestock development is a business. Let us say, peradventure, that this whole reform and this ministry that is being created now, that the rules that will guide it will be: one, no more open grazing. You're not to be giving grazing reserves. Go and source your land and grow your cows and do your business by yourself. And then, you know, with these things, no more entering into people's farms. You're not giving anything by the government. Go do your business, and we as a ministry will take care of you as business people. Would that be something that the Mieti cattle breeders will be okay with? Okay, I think we're having a bit of a technical difficulty there, but can you hear me, sir?
No.
Mr. Angazelma?
I can hear you now.
I asked that if this new ministry comes with some rules that are guiding livestock in the country, one being no more open grazing, no more grazing reserves, go and get your own land and pay for it, and then we treat you as a business. As a ministry, we'll take care of you as you're running livestock as a business, whether it is cows or goats or chickens or pigs or whatever it is you're doing. Hold it as a personal business, go and get your own land, do your thing, and we support you as a ministry. Is that something that will be okay for the Mieti Ala Cattle Breeders Association?
There. If you are always talking of livestock as a private business, yes, I agree it's a private business. But even private investors who are coming into Nigeria to invest deserve some sort of attention, deserve some sort of assistance to attract them to come and invest in Nigeria. Airline business is a private business, but the government established airports, developed airports for the airplanes to land and take off. Even roads are flown on daily basis by commercial bus owners. These roads belong to government. They are run by private commercial bus owners to get money for themselves on a government road. On a government road, they run their businesses on a government-developed road. They run their businesses on a government-established airports. What makes the pastoralists different? That they cannot enjoy some sort of assistance from government as citizens of this country. This is where always the misconception is, because people are being blinded by sentiment against the pastoralists, who are mostly coincidentally Fulanis. It's not a choice that Fulanis are the cattle owners of this country. It's just a coincidence. It's never our choice.
Right.
If it were our choice, we would not choose to be cattle rearers in this country. But why are people looking in
down
this
now?
way?
Okay, so but Ms. Ngazama, the thing about that is, I mean, it's a democracy and policies have to be bounced off a lot of people before they come through, because you're not just, the cattle breeders are not in one space, they're moving around several places that concern several people. For instance, I mean, I do remember also that at the time, what the Oshibajo committee was talking about was ranching only. And then there were a narrative that the Ganduje committee snuck in open grazing that had already gone. So if it was just about ranching, I don't think that many will be where we are today. But when people keep saying sentiment, don't bring sentiment in, leave sentiment out and talk about the business. So let me ask you then, for instance, now, according to the CBN, if Nigeria had maintained our market in the palm oil sector, that's our dominance in the palm oil sector, which we had once upon a time. He says by now the country will be earning approximately $20 billion annually. Now this is business. This is real business here. So if tomorrow people come in and say, okay, if you set up Ministry of Livestock, we want Ministry of Palm Oil, there'll be no end to this.
Well, you see, under agriculture, we have agronomy and livestock. Any other thing falls under agronomy, and animal issues fall under livestock. There are two different things under one ministry. While we are speaking of over 500 billion spent on agronomy during the Buhari's last 8 years, nothing was spent on livestock. We need a balance between the two. And when we talk of a balance, we are not talking of a 50-50 balance, because even the pastoralists are also farmers. When we talk of striking a balance, we are talking about something like 70-30. At least if you give agriculture, agronomy 70% attention, less livestock also has about 30% attention. That is the balance we are looking for. We are not being selfish, because we know majority of the pastoralists, of the livestock owners are also farmers. But that aside, let's look at the broader picture of what livestock can do to the economy. This is what we are talking about. That is why we have been agitating for a ministry, so that the potentials involved in the livestock subsector can be tapped for the interest of the economy of the country, not for the interest of the pastoralists alone. The pastoralists as citizens want to stay in one place, they want their children to go to school, they want to enjoy like any other citizen. They are robbing the while looking for free pasture as a necessity, as the only thing they do, they know to do.
Is it, so are you saying that that cannot be achieved under the Ministry of Agriculture?
It can never be achieved under a mere department, under the Ministry of Agriculture. Livestock was placed under an animal husbandry department.
What is this ministry going to do
the funding
that
is
the
not
Ministry of Agri cannot do?
The personnel are not adequate, and the efficiency is not there. And coupled with the security phenomenon that is coming into it now, we'll need a dedicated ministry to tackle all these things holistically at the same time. That is why we have been agitating for a ministry.
Okay, let me get Prof's final thoughts before we go.
Well, my final thought is this: we don't need a ministry of animal livestock development before we can bring about certain changes in the livestock sector. We don't need that. I also want to say that what the person who has cattle needs is land, pasture, water, and veterinary services. Land can be procured privately. You have to buy it. No person will give you land because there's no land anywhere to give to anybody.
You talk about grazing routes.
Yes. Then they need pasture. Pasture is available and it's not in the wild, in the bush, as people roaming with cattle would want. Institutions like Shika and Zaria have developed pasture, which the pastoralists are refusing to use. Then, of course, they need water. You can't be roaming about with your cows to share water holes with human beings.
All right. We want to thank Usman Bamangozama, National Secretary, Meiti Allah Cattle Breeders Association of Nigeria, that's MAGBAN. and Dr. Dele Ayemibo, lead consultant, 3T Impacts Consulting, and Professor Zachary Gundu, Vice Chancellor, University of Mka in Benue State. Thank you all for coming on this morning.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Business Morning on Sunrise Elite comes up next.
Good morning. Welcome to Business Morning on Sunrise Daily. And of course, before that break that we saw this new ministry. Obviously, we're having different sides of conversation on that new ministry, Ministry of Livestock, expectations, what does it do to the cost of governance, you know, and all of that. So many sides to it. I know it will be a continuing one. That's why you have to stay here on Channels Television, because our various programs will touch on that and more. But now let's do, for just about 30 minutes, do a bit of business, starting from the global space as usual. We start with oil prices, where on Wednesday we start the impact from Hurricane Beryl dissipated, weak consumer demand and top crude importer China. So it's moved from US now to China. That's the impact of it. Now let's look at what the prices look like, and we see that it's red, 0.69%. That's a huge drop right there. But you know, fears are also reducing when it comes to supply. So it's $84.08 a barrel for Brent. That's Nigerian's crude is from there. WTI, this for the United States, is $80.93, and that's down 0.59%. Weather or the Hurricane Beryl is a major contributor to that movement. And then oil and gas companies restarted some operations on Tuesday. Some ports reopened, and most producers and facilities were ramping up outputs, although some facilities sustained damage and power had not been fully restored. So that's it, the impact of Hurricane Beryl affecting oil prices today. Still talking about oil now, but back here in Nigeria, the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited is in talks for another oil-backed loan to strengthen its finances and support business investment. The Chief Executive Officer of NNPC, Mr. Mele Kyari, made this known in an interview with Reuters. The state-backed oil company aims to raise at least $2 billion as its debts to gasoline suppliers have doubled to $6 billion in the past 4 months. Mr. Kyari confirmed that the company seeks a loan against 30,000 to 35,000 barrels of oil per day crude production, with the fund supporting overall business activities. Currently, NNPC has a $3.3 billion oil-backed loan through Afrexim Bank. However, rising fuel subsidy costs have strained its cash flow. So, I mean, first hearing this, obviously you think at this point we're having refineries coming up in the country and we're looking for crude, and here we have even more strain on crude supply. What will this do to the country? Are we going to see a situation where, well, a country that is supposed to be a giant in crude production, at least on the continent, is also importing crude? Well, these are worrying issues. Concerns have been raised, and we'll discuss this on Business Incorporated. So you want to join Laddie Williams at 1 p.m. to see some other perspective on this request for new loan from the NNPCL and its crude-backed new loan. So you want to join us by then. Then we look at the Naira, where NAFEX is still depreciating at the close of trade on Tuesday. It closed at, for KNAFEM, it closed at 1,532 Naira 58 kobo, open at 1,523. There's a drop of 0.57%. NAFEX also dropped 0.84%. That's even bigger. Closed at 1,534 Naira 51 kobo. Yesterday, we had that conversation about our reserves gaining, but we haven't seen it trickle down to the market yet, or at least the value of the Naira. And now, I guess yesterday, Dr. Josh Banfo had said there may be need for intervention, but we've not had quite intervention from the CBN into the market for more than 3 weeks now. You know, I wonder if that is necessary. I mean, we call that maybe an artificial value when they intervene. So is it better for it to be like this? We will watch and see. Now, the youth wing of the All Progressives Congress is organizing an empowerment program for skills acquisition. That program is still ongoing now. We had the youth leader, APC youth leader, on the show last week, Friday, to tell us about this program, which has in attendance stakeholders from the Bank of Industry, Smeden, and others. Is set to prepare attendees for doing business in Nigeria. Being a ruling party is not just about winning elections, but empowering youth in the country beyond party lines. That's the focal point of this Enterprise Skills Development Training Program for 2024. While the insignia of the All Progressives Congress dots the venue, the event is open to all who is ready to get empowered.
Do that for him. Thank you.
The APC youth leader, Dr. Dio Israel, says this is part of the wing's 4-year plan to contribute to the President Bola Tinubu's development drive.
We want to turn our young people from job seekers to job creators. We want to build the capacity of everybody in this hall, not just youth, but even those who are youth at heart, to help them to see and move from just being a dreamer to turn their dreams into reality. And that's what this training is about.
The training begins with words to reorientate all present on the need to actively contribute to economic development.
But ultimately, no business, no company can ever pay you what you're worth. The best solution for any nation, as we all know, is the masses getting involved in business and feeding themselves, fending for themselves. And so today I would encourage you, whether or not you are in entrepreneurship or you are in a 9-to-5, please create value.
Sometimes along the way you find a helper, like we are here today. Somebody might just impress me and we get chatting and he says, oh, bros, I have this proposal. If it looks good, yes. If you come to me for help, I tell people I don't just help. You want to set up a business, go and bring your business plan. You must plan. You must have a focus. There is no free lunch. Especially for those who work hard, they will not give you free lunch.
Thank you.
The program promises hands-on experience for all registered participants from July 8 to 12. Yeah, well, I guess it's beyond just politics right there. But now, one of the things that could make that a frustration or a success is power. The federal government, I mean, we don't want to talk about grid collapse. We know what happened over this past weekend. The federal government has issued 6 licenses in different firms for independent distribution of electricity in the country. And according to the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission, it shows that an analysis of the commission regulator issued, according to that, the regulators explained that the networks were designed to independent of the main transmission, that's the off-grid transmission, and operate a smaller scale, providing electricity to specific areas of communities. Well, we have someone who did not just get that license, has been playing in that field, that's the independent power supply field, for a bit now. He joins us in the studio. He's the Managing Director of Welbeck Electricity Independent Power, Mr. Folabi Ayola. Thank you so much for your time, Mr. Ayola, for your time. And so this is addition to, you know, your operations,
yes,
maybe more competition and all of that, but I guess that's good for consumers. But tell us how it's been like playing in the field as an independent power supplier in the country where there's a huge need for it, and it does look like going on the grid becomes even more challenging every time.
I think that we're in very interesting times here. As you know, the federal government moved electricity generation, transmission and distribution from the executive list to the concurrent list. And I'll mention a couple of states that have really made, definitely really made gains in this area in coming up with their own state electricity laws. The first one I have to mention is Imo State. As I'm sure some of the viewers will know, Imo State has recently passed their electricity law. That means if you want to generate, distribute, transmission electricity in Imo State, you go to their state electricity board and no longer NERC. I'll definitely give credit to the governor, the state assembly for coming through so quickly, being the first state to do it. And we can already see that there are some benefits expected from this. I'll quickly mention the industrial estates in Owerri. There's been interest from independent power producers to set up power and build up that. I know that the minister is working on that. And then I'll move to Lagos State. Lagos is the economic capital of the country and the largest consumer of electricity. We have the highest amount of industry in the country concentrated in this state. So it is crucial that the state, the governor and the state assembly get this right, which they're currently doing. From here, I'll head to the state assembly for the public hearing on the Lagos State electricity law, or the bill that is being pushed through the state assembly.
It's supposed to be domesticating it.
Yes.
For Lagos State. So how does this work as an independent power company? So you generate, do you check out for the source? Do you do the green power or just anyone? So
as an independent power producer, currently we generate electricity, sell to our end users, independent of the grid. But with the...
What's your source? Is it solar? Is it hydro?
We use gas.
Gas, okay. So we haven't really tapped into solar yet, but that's in abundance.
The issue with solar is that the capital cost of setting up, let's say, 1 megawatt of power generation is about 3 times higher solar compared to using gas turbines and generators. So there's a high capital cost. However, there are some incentives which need to reach people like us, companies like us. The United Nations offer carbon credits. One of our projects is currently keyed up, is signed up to that. Our project we're doing in conjunction with MTN. MTN is a multinational. They have access to these areas. So it's something that if it can be spread to other independent power companies, there will be an incentive. The carbon credits, the way that they work is basically for reducing your emissions, you're given a monetary benefit. So it's basically to encourage countries like us to try and reduce emissions.
All right. So you produce the power, you have target customers, you approach them, and then they buy into you. So you are the one who supplies them. Tell us how that works. And the issue of cost, obviously, is a factor.
Yes. So I'll say that the major factor affecting us, and I'll say affecting the industry, is the cost of gas. So firstly, gas is priced in dollar. So anytime Naira moves against the dollar, our gas price goes up. Most of our customers are, apart from the telecoms, most of our customers are industrialists, factories, SMEs, the people that are producing, the people that employ the most Nigerians. So gas is produced in Nigeria. As the Minister of Power said, it should be priced in Naira. If it's priced in Naira, that helps us a lot. I know another thing that has come up in the public hearing and the state law has been also the cost of gas. So we pay a lot more for gas as an independent producer, power producer, than the Gencos do. If we can get a lower gas price, you'll see a lot more investment. You'll see a lot more investment, and people will have more access to power.
So this cost, say, we keep talking about, is it service reflective tariff or cost reflective tariff? And they also complain of things like oil theft and then customers not paying up. How do you handle that?
I mean, it's a difficult issue, but I think the state law, the Lagos state law anyway, is addressing all of these issues. So first of all, in the area of theft and illegal connections, the law will set up an enforcement unit that will have the power to enforce this, will have the power to prosecute offenders and so on. So that helps. And more importantly, the cost-reflective tariff is enshrined in the bill. So there won't be subsidies. The tariffs will be cost reflective. However, there's provision there for robust discussion between the suppliers, the producers, and the end users. I believe in order to agree on a tariff that's cost reflective, you will have to have about at least 75% of the residents in that area agree to, I believe it's about 75%, but that can be confirmed. So we will see a cost-reflective tariff. Some people may pay more for electricity, but it will be much more available. And if I can just give you a figure, in Nigeria, the whole of Nigeria, we spent 20 trillion naira on generating electricity. Only 1 trillion of that went to the grid. So that means Nigerians are spending 19 trillion to generate electricity themselves. In Lagos, we generate about 16,000 megawatts of electricity. That's 4 times the national average. Out of that 16,000, I think it's only 1,000 comes from the grid. So Nigerians are spending a lot of money generating electricity themselves. If that money, even just part of it, can be put back into the grid, into investment, Nigerians in total, on a holistic basis, will be paying less for their electricity, even if their tariffs are increased slightly.
So what you do as an independent power supplies, you have a target or agreement with companies, with communities, so you target them, and they don't have to be connected to the national grid, they're just connected to you, and then they get there. So you're going for the hearing in Lagos now. After that, what next?
After that, we're hoping the governor, the third reading, you'll pass the third reading, the governor will sign the bill into law. And for us and for everyone else, we're currently licensed by NERC, that's under the federal government, but us and every other power producer or trader in Lagos will have to be licensed with the new Lagos State Agency. So once the bill is signed into law, we move from federal to the state. So the state will then have complete control. And one more thing to mention, as part of the law, the system operator is going to be independent. So we hear about grid collapses, and whenever that happens, we look at the system operator. In Lagos, once it has its own electricity market, it will have an independent system operator. That system operator will operate the market, will be in charge of operating the market. The state government will still regulate the market, but the system operator will be in charge of operating the market. So I think that will also help a lot with improving service.
All right, so I will certainly look for the days when we don't have to say the grid has collapsed and start counting and the costs and all of that. But thank you so much. We wish you the best as you go for the hearing. Managing Director of Welbeck Electricity Independent Power. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, now, so power, of course, it's a major one for any business or any economy. Let's take a break now. When we come back, we do have another conversation waiting for you. The private sector is still in focus here on Business Morning on Sunrise TV. All right, you're welcome back. And yes, of course, food security is still on the table. I'm so glad that yesterday the lawmakers also talking about is the need that attention is given to food security in the country is at the bottom of everything. But anyways, talking about the private sector now, the Africa Finance Corporation is interested in the private sector in Nigeria, or in Africa, well, as the name implies. So I want to delve into this with the Senior Director and Treasurer of AFC, Banji Feintola is the Senior Director and Treasurer. But, well, I guess I should be the first to say this. From the 1st of August, is going to be the Executive Director and Head of Financial Services with AFC. So, good morning. Well, I guess I should say congratulations ahead of August.
Well, good morning, and thank you for the congratulatory message. I appreciate it. Thank you.
You're welcome. So, AFC is interested in the private sector growth on the continent. Forgive me if I'm selfish, and I'm talking more of Nigeria, and you're talking about emerging markets. We just talked about power, which is an infrastructural deficit or a gap, has an infrastructural gap on the continent, beginning with Nigeria. But you are also concerned about access to markets. We see some countries have started using, for instance, the AFC-FTA platform, but I don't think Nigeria has really started. What do you bring to the table as AFC to help emerging markets in this area?
Well, I mean, I think a lot. And as you definitely know, AFC has been in operation for about 16 plus years, since 2007. And during that time, we've done a lot in terms of intervention across several countries on the continent. When we started, we were about $1.1 billion. Today, we're about $12.5 billion with 43, African countries that have signed up to be members of AFC. We've deployed about $13 billion as well in about 36 countries. So that's really quite important for us, what we do in terms of scaling up developmental impact on the continent. And we've done a lot of that. We intend to do a lot more in the years to come. We primarily intervene through 5 sectors, natural resources, which is oil, gas, and mining. We do power, which I was glad to see the previous session. We spent a lot of time talking about power and energy access. We do transport and logistics. We do heavy industries, telecoms, and we also support financial institutions. So what you notice is all these sectors generally help us, to create decent markets for Africa. You talked about the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. We're very big in supporting that. We cannot connect Africa in terms of intra-African trade without supporting infrastructure, which is the backbone upon which trade will sit. So across all those, we see tremendous opportunities, and we are actively, working across the continent, including Nigeria. Obviously, I notice your selfish interest about Nigeria, but we're actively working here as well to ensure that markets are more efficient and we can deliver the kind of development that will trickle down to the African population.
But how do you suggest this issue of devaluation of currencies, Naira included, be handled? Because that obviously makes a lot of things difficult. I mean, thank God you listened to the conversation on power. They have to pay for gas in hard currency, and of course with the devaluation of the Naira, it becomes more expensive. So, I mean, devaluation of the currency is a huge problem for many countries on the continent at this time.
I fully agree with you. And, honestly, that's been a problem that's been with us for decades, right? So if we go back to our parents' time, I'm sure they will be screaming to see where the currency is today compared to what it was during their time, and even during our own lifetime growing up in this country. And it's just a reflection of the structure of our economies. Whenever there's a massive devaluation, that has impact on inflation. It has an impact on the cost of living of people. And that's largely because most of the things in this country and on the continent tend to be imported. So you tend to have more of imported inflation, largely because currency is losing value from time to time. Now, that's extremely, it's a big challenge that we need to address. And I think, for me, there are two things. One, let's focus on the first thing we can control, One thing we can control, obviously, is our taste, and preferences for imported things, as long as it's not capital goods. I'm just talking about consumables. That is within the control of people. But people will not buy local products except the quality is probably as good as what they get, from the imported ones. So we know that we need to fix the value chain. The whole process, the system today where Africa has abundant natural resources, we ship out those natural resources, we don't do any beneficiation or processing on the continent, and then we import finished or semi-finished goods. That has to stop. And that's really where AFC has been very active in trying to ensure that there's more value capture on the continent. So we've been highly successful with this in Gabon, which I'm sure you might have heard about, where we've developed special economic zones. And the whole idea is that a lot of production needs to start happening on the continent. Our special economic zone today is in 10 countries. Obviously, Nigeria is also one of the countries in which they are also starting activities. In Benin, cotton, through our special economic zone, is now being processed into, fabrics, into T-shirts, into towels, and those things are being exported to the rest of the world, bringing foreign currency into the country and the continent as well. So that's really the direction of travel. For us to address this problem of devaluation, Africa needs to move up the value chain. And moving up that value chain, therefore, means that we can export and add value on the continent and get hard currency which supports our local currencies.
Yeah, well, I really wish we could delve more on that, especially when you look at workable, innovative business models. I wonder if you can do that in less than a minute. We're almost out of time that you can suggest. This time for just Nigeria, let me let my selfishness show. We saw a lot of multinationals leaving the country. It's worrying, but of course we can also make the most of it. What are some of those, or what is one major model you think Nigerians can adopt?
So Nigeria specifically is blessed, and just Nigeria mirrors the rest of the continent. Over 60% of this continent is people below age of 25. So we have a youthful population. We need to find a way to ensure that that population is engaged. We need to find a way to get jobs for those people, and that links to my earlier comment around providing opportunities and moving up the value chain. The government itself needs to create, obviously, a very friendly environment for businesses to thrive. I think the role of government in any society really is to remove the bottlenecks and let the private sector to just fly. And capital institutions like ours needs to find a way to connect global capital also to Nigeria and to the rest of the continent. And you have our commitment that we'll be doing that significantly at AFC going forward.
All right, so thank you. We'll hold you to your word, and we hope those capital will not cost us an arm and a leg. Mr. Banji Feitola, Senior Director and Treasurer at AFC, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right, well, unfortunately, we don't have time to do the markets, but do join Ladi Williams and Anete Edet at 1 p.m. Business Incorporated. They'll give you all the market fresh numbers, so you don't want to miss it. And also, remember that NNPCL conversation is also waiting for you. Then let's head back to the Sunrise Daily Studio.
Packed full, but the Green Chamber is not, as the Deputy Speaker arrives to preside over the first plenary session of the week. Lawmakers waste no time dealing with matters of urgent national importance, beginning with the disturbing recurring queues at petrol stations in some parts of the country. The House resolves to carry out a forensic investigation into the resurgence of fuel queues, as well as the alleged indiscriminate issuance of licenses for importation of PMS, importation of substandard petroleum products, as well as failure of regulators to do their job. The House then turns its attention to the controversial Samoa agreement signed by the federal government and the European Union.
That the phrase gender equality, as reported, is a Trojan horse for deceptively bringing in all sorts of immorality to our country, as gender no longer means sexes, male and female, as traditionally understood. It now includes homosexualism, lesbianism, transgenderism, and animalism.
There is nothing like lesbian rights or gay rights. It is about human rights, environmental protection, and trade agreements, period. How on earth, if you have the agreement, bring it out here.
Why are we here talking about LGBT, GTBT, whatever? Let us concentrate on the issues that matter. As far as I'm concerned, Mr. Speaker, our people are not interested in this, so let us step it down, let us close it, let us forget everything about it.
Where the federal government is going into an agreement, by the provisions of Section 12 of the Constitution, the Parliament ought to be carried along.
The resolution to suspend the implementation of the agreement is adopted, and the House mandates its relevant committees to liaise with the federal government to resolve all grey areas in the agreement. A bill to improve women participation in politics by altering the constitution to provide for special seats for women draws a robust debate from lawmakers.
Each of these our political parties, some give women their forms for free. Some give the women their form for half the price already. So, Mr. Speaker, if you are saying we should create extra seats again, that is going against the Constitution of the Republic of Nigeria that fights for equality.
I do not know of any law of the Federal Republic of Nigeria that stops a woman from contesting election or winning a seat in the House of Representatives.
You are only giving us special seats. We are not taking your seats, the one that you are occupying. After all, that seat, you may not be there one day. It's somebody else that will be there.
I thought my colleague would say, let us extend this, that every deputy governor should be women. I will agree to that, Mr. Speaker. That is what is expected. I cannot stand here and tell you that we should not give women an opportunity to participate in election. Let's give them a better opportunity.
Those in support of this bill say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it.
The debate on the special seats bill is not that different from what transpired in the 9th House of Representatives on the same bill. It was eventually voted against. I guess we'll wait to see how lawmakers in the 10th House will vote. Meanwhile, the House has passed through second reading a bill to ensure that Nigerians outside the country participate in future elections. From the House of Representatives, Terry Ikumi, Channels Television News.
All right, so let's get right to it. We've got Honorable Rabiu Yusuf here with us. He is the Chairman, House Committee on Treaties, Protocols, and Agreements. Good morning. Thank you for coming on today.
Good morning, Mr. Chamberlain.
Well, that's a hot topic right there.
Yeah, it's true. It's topic of the day.
It was buzzing all over the place, and still is, by the way. And so perhaps that informed the decision of the House on this matter. So, yes, we've seen how the House went about this, but is the National Assembly, Senate, are they on the same page with the reps?
No, actually, you know, first of all, I need to thank you for having me on the studio, and I really appreciate your concern over this main issue, which is topic of the day. For your question whether the Senate are into it, for now, in the House of Representatives, we have taken a decision to call on Mr. President to suspend, or in other words, to bring out the gray areas, the topics of the discussion or the violent provisions, so that we can see whether they violate our fundamental rules, fundamental ethics, and our way of life. So the Senate, I'm not aware whether that issue has been tabled before the Senate, but as far as House of Representatives are concerned, we have tabled it yesterday, and we have discussed over it, and we have taken a decision. So I think that's the position for now.
So has this been transmitted to the president? Is he aware of this?
Actually, you know, there are so many ways of communicating with Mr. President, particularly this Samoa agreement, which is the topic of the day. For now, it has not been brought to our table, or has been not been communicated to us as members of the National Assembly. But we have our rules of doing things in the National Assembly, particularly our standing orders and the rules of engagement of the House of Representatives. You know, we came under Order 8 by bringing it as a matter of urgent public importance, despite the fact that it was not transmitted for our consideration, but being the topic of the day and it attracting a lot of attention. it is trying to ridicule the society. It is trying to ridicule our democratic setting. So we now think it is appropriate to bring it into the National Assembly for us to discuss, despite the fact that it was not transmitted to the National Assembly. And it was, the motions were sponsored by our colleague, Honorable Ali Usanima Daikingidi, and I lead the debate on that particular bill, and we have succeeded in achieving what we wanted to achieve as far as that agreement is concerned.
What is it you wanted to achieve? To suspend it or to kick it out completely?
No, actually, if you wanted to talk about this issue, you know how Nigeria it is. We are highly pragmatic in the sense that we cherish our values, we cherish our norms, we cherish our institution and our religious standing. So, there is this fear. There is this fear that there are certain provisions on that particular agreement. I think particularly Section 9, Section 22, and Section 29, which we feel like they are highly offensive based on the narratives flowing from the society.
So I want to be able, let's get those areas just so we can be specific as to what the problem is. So it's the part that says human rights, democracy, and governance.
Yes.
And then it says, while the parties will commit to promote, protect, and fulfill all human rights by be they civil, political, economic, social, or cultural, some ACP states, which we belong to, some ACP states were reluctant to see the foundation agreement mention sexual orientation and gender identity rights, an issue on which there are also differences among EU member states. But they went on to say, as a matter of compromise, the parties will commit to the implementation of existing international agreements, notably the International Conference on Population and Development Program of Action on Sexual and Reproductive Health Rights. So basically they're saying, look, since they have an issue with this part of the agreement, there's an international rule that protects rights of people. Maybe they can focus on that. Now, this conversation really has brought up a lot of issues when it comes to this, because you are in agreements. You're with the agreements bit of our country. That's where your focus is as the head of this committee. This Samoa agreement, what was it supposed to achieve at the time when it was entered into?
So, if you can remember what I told you earlier before the start of these conversations, Samoa agreement, the way it is, it contains almost like 128 articles, right? And we see it not from the official angle. What I mean by the official angle, it was not transmitted to the National Assembly, right? It's just out of the cry and suspicion. You know what I'm saying? So that is fundamentally what guides the National Assembly, that let's look down and sit on it. There is this thinking, or there is this permutation in the town or in the country, that the federal government has went ahead to sign this Samoa agreement, despite containing all these offensive terms and what have you. So now what we are doing in essence, we are not saying whether these terms you did mention, they contain, or they've said this, or they are trying to broader, but what we are saying now, look, Mr. President, there is a cry in the country. There is serious outcry. There is a group of opinions. There is all shenanigans going on that this particular agreement, which Nigeria refused to sign November last year, 2023. The agreement was supposed to sign in November 2023, but Nigeria decided, based on this cry and this suspicion, we shall abstain from signing it officially. Nigeria did not participate on the signing ceremony because of this contention and this permutation and this thinking. So now, why will you go, secretly to sign the agreement in Brussels on 28th of July? We just know about it when the Minister of Budget and National Planning said on one of his occasions that this Samoa agreement was signed on 28th July, and it contained this provision, what people are saying, what people are fearing are not contained in the provision of that agreement. So now, okay, look.
Because that's what I'm seeing from the caveat here.
Yes.
Which is that those particular fears are being addressed in the sense that, look, we understand that you're different, you have rules that govern your country, we're trying something else. And I'm hearing that from the NBA president, we're hearing it from other people.
What we're saying, as far as National Assembly is concerned, is agreed. There is an outcry. Agreed. You don't sign it on this particular day it's supposed to be signed because of this fear and this permutation in the country. Now, why will you go secretly and sign it? You know, in Nigeria, we have a hierarchy of government. You have ministers, you have, a permanent secretary and what have you. But the ambassador, just went to and signed it, just saying...
Why do you think it was secretly?
No, because people were not informed that the agreement is going to be signed. And Nigeria has officially made a decision.
People? National Assembly?
National Assembly were not informed.
What about Bakassi? Was National Assembly informed?
Bakassi, actually, I cannot say specifically because I am not much into that Bakassi issue.
The crowd out there were not informed too.
But what we are saying, if the Mr. President or the federal government feel like they wanted to sign, at least they should address this fear. Hold on, stop signing this agreement. This is a gray areas. There are speculations. There are appeals. Even you, the federal government, admitted that we cannot sign this agreement as the day it's supposed to be signed. That is, I think, 11th November 2023. You opted out for not signing that, and you stated the reasons. This is a fear we have on signing this agreement. We will not sign. So now, did that fear have been addressed before you sign? That is what the National Assembly is saying. Okay, now, Mr. President, suspend whatever it has to do with Samoa. Address this fear. Come out and address the fear.
Did the members, are they aware of the statement by the president of the NBA?
Actually, I didn't know he make any statement.
Okay. Yesterday, I think it was almost the same time or shortly after.
Okay, after we did that resolution yesterday?
Yeah, that's why we're asking if the House consulted, because you kept on referring to the fears.
Yeah.
We're talking about what about the facts or as against the fears?
Yes.
Because fears could be because people don't know the facts.
Yes.
Or the NBA president put up a statement saying that Samoa agreement does not, in fact, let me see if I can quote him directly so I don't take it out of context. He said, quote, "To avoid any doubt, the Samoa agreement does not in any way seek to compromise our existing legislations nor undermine the sovereignty of Nigeria. Before the signing of the Samoa Agreement, the Honorable Minister of Budget and Economic Planning requested the Nigerian Bar Association as a major stakeholder in the polity to look at the agreement. Consequently, I constituted a committee chaired by Olaole Fakonda, SEN, former Attorney General and Commissioner for Justice, Ekiti State, and Chairman of the NBA Law Reform Committee to vet, evaluate, and advise on the agreement accordingly."
Okay.
So if this were the case...
Okay. I get you, Mr. Chamberlain, but, if there is no that provisions as speculated, so now it is now the turn of the federal government to did what we have just passed as a resolution yesterday. What we are saying, come out, address these gray areas, bring the documents, let us see it. If this position, as the federal government, I'm just hearing from you that what the NBA president has just stated.
Yeah.
So if the federal government are very sure there is no that provisions, just come out, address it to the public, surrender the document, and maybe it will come to us for domestication before it become a law. So now come and show us this is what is contained in the Samoa Agreement, and we had like a situation maybe. Maybe there are two versions. I don't know. I'm just saying my opinion. So now let's see what you have signed. Bring it to the public domain. Make it available so that we can see if those provisions are contained on that particular agreement. I'm telling you, we will stand by our resolutions. We will not agree with it. We will not go and domesticate it, because if that provisions are contained, it will violate our fundamental reasons of existence. It will violate our norms, ethics. It will violate our way of life and our religion, provided that it contains those, and we will not domesticate it in this country.
Because maybe moving forward, one hopes that is the House of Reps thinking moving forward before the government signs any instruments or agreements in any part. Your committee should be aware, for instance, they have to ensure that the National Assembly is aware. Because I'm wondering if the public had not come up with this outcry, does it mean National Assembly would not have come into this? They would have allowed it go like that?
No, we will not allow it to go because it will come to my office. It will come to our table so that we can start the process of domesticating it. I hope you get it. So it will come to my office and we will scrutinize it, and if we find reasons and we find the offensive terms, we will do away with it.
At the risk of sounding too modern, is the House of Representatives aware that in Nigeria we have a growing number of people from the LGBTQI plus community in this country? Now, we do have laws that guide that behavior, but there is a growing number of these people in the country. Is that something that the House of Representatives thinks about?
No,
what's going to happen to those people?
We will not think about it because there is already an act of the National Assembly, provisions prohibiting this issue of same-sex marriage, promoting, LGBTQ. We have a law. I think it was passed in 2014.
Yeah, we're aware of the law. What I'm saying is, do you know that there are lots of people who are... I'm
not aware. I'm just hearing for the first time from you. I'm not aware of that, actually. Okay. And if we are aware of it, we will take the necessary steps that ensure that they have been prosecuted because it's against the law of our land. So,
is the National Assembly also going to advise or put their foot down and say, look, the executive, whatever agreement you want to sign, and you want to take loans on behalf of this country, whatever the conditions are, they have to be spelled out. There has to be the interpretation clause. The country has to see what exactly are you taking so that nobody hides behind the scenes and bringing things to this country where there has to be an outcry before we look at it.
No, actually,
what's the position?
No, the position is whatever agreement, there is three fundamental characteristics of democracy. That is the legislature, judiciary, and the executive arms. And most of the time, they work together to checkmate each other. So if there is any agreement or there is any treaties, bilateral, multilateral, whatever it is, the National Assembly need to be involved because we are the representatives of our people. And we are taking the positions of our people, and we are trying to see we protect the people. So I believe National Assembly need to be taking everything which has concerned agreement with other entities so that the right of the people can be protected and be promoted at the same time.
All right, we need to run out. I mean, does that mean that your committee is expecting feedback from the executive about this to decide what you do moving forward?
No, now I think it is left for the federal government now. This is our resolution. We have already brought the issue under a matter of urgent public importance. So now we have already made a resolution that, look, stop this Samoa agreement.
Okay.
It contains certain provisions which need to be clarified before we can take further steps.
All right, we'll keep tabs on that one. I understand you have to run. Honorable Rabi Yusuf is the Chairman, House Committee on Treaties, Protocol and Agreement. Thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you, Mr. Chamberlain, and thank you for having me on the studio.
All right, we're back in just a moment. Don't go away.